You smell honey on your hands, and you see sticky tools on the counter. This is the exact moment a lot of mead batches start going wrong, and most people don't realize it yet. The mistake usually does not happen at the end. It happens right here, before fermentation even starts. I learned that the hard way. And if you are brand new or still thinking about your first batch, this is for you. I want to help you make better mead early and avoid beginner mistakes that cost time, money, and honey. We start with what you cannot see, water and sanitation. In plain language, that means the water you use and how you clean your tools. If your tap water has chlorine or chloramine, your mead can pick up weird off flavors that taste medicinal or plastic-like. Those flavors are hard to fix later. If your water is questionable, use filtered water or reverse osmosis water. And do not assume boiling solves it, especially with chloramine. But even with pure water and clean tools, your most expensive equipment might be the very thing making your mead taste like a cheap mistake. Here's the good news. You don't need a giant stainless steel setup to make great mead. A bucket works, a carboy works. Start simple. If money is tight, put your budget into quality honey and good yeast, not shiny equipment. You can upgrade your gear later, but you cannot fix weak honey by buying a prettier fermenter. Good honey is the foundation of your mead, and the origin and the flavor of the honey show up in the final drink. Now, let's talk about clean equipment, because this is where beginners lose batches without knowing why. Anything that touches your mead needs to be sanitized. That includes the fermenter, lid, stopper, airlock, spoon, siphon, and tubing. But here is a beginner mistake worth fixing right now. Clean first, then sanitize. If there's sticky honey or visible grime on something, wash it first. Sanitizer is not magic on dirty surfaces. A no-mix brewing sanitizer mixed correctly is one of the cheapest upgrades you can make. There is one low-cost tool that matters more than any bucket, and if you skip it, you are just guessing at a disaster. I'm talking about a hydrometer. If you're brand new, do not let that word scare you. A hydrometer is a simple floating tool that helps you measure how much sugar is in your liquid. In mead making, that matters because yeast eats sugar. When people say gravity, they're talking about that sugar level. Your starting gravity is just your starting sugar reading before fermentation begins. You do not need to be a scientist to use it. You just need to know this. If you skip the hydrometer, you're guessing. And guessing is how people bottle too early. Airlock bubbles can be helpful, but they're not proof. Sometimes a bucket lid does not seal perfectly, or temperatures make the airlock move. A quiet airlock does not mean nothing is happening, and a busy airlock does not always mean you are safe. The hydrometer gives you real evidence. Even with the best tools in the world, if you mix your honey in the wrong order, the numbers will lie to your face and ruin your calculations. Before you mix anything, stage your tools so you're not scrambling with sticky hands. Get your fermenter, your spoon, and your sanitizer ready. This sounds basic, but it keeps mistakes from happening when everything gets slippery. Now, let's protect the aroma you paid for. If your honey is thick or crystallized, do not boil it. Boiling can strip out delicate honey aroma. A gentle warm water bath works better. You're not trying to cook the honey, you're just warming the container enough so that the honey flows. When you start mixing, add the water to the fermenter first and leave room at the top. That extra space makes it easier to stir without a mess. Then add your honey and mix until the liquid is completely uniform. This means the honey is evenly mixed all the way through. Not a quick swirl. Really mixed. This matters because if the honey is sitting in layers, what we call stratification, your hydrometer reading will be wrong. And if your reading is wrong, every decision you make after that can be wrong too. Now that the mix is perfectly uniform, you are about to unknowingly starve your yeast, and the honey itself is the reason why. At this point, a beginner might think the yeast can handle the rest on its own. But here's the reality. Honey is amazing, but it is not a complete food for yeast. Yeast needs more than sugar to ferment cleanly. That means mead can struggle if you ignore yeast nutrients. When yeast gets stressed, it can create rough flavors and fermentation problems that take longer to improve. I'm not going deep into advanced nutrient schedules in this video because this one is for true beginners. The big takeaway is simple. If your recipe includes yeast nutrient, do not skip it. Follow the directions. Yeast nutrition is one of the reasons some meads ferment clean and others turn into a headache. Once you have addressed the nutrition, you have to choose the right yeast for the job. But you must manage their personality, because temperature can change the mead faster than the honey itself. Different yeast can change aroma, mouthfeel, and how the mead ferments. For batch 1, focus on 2 things. Use the yeast commonly recommended for mead and keep it in the temperature range listed by the manufacturer. Temperature matters more than beginners realize. Fermentation can make the liquid warmer than the room, so do not judge only by how the room feels. Once you add the yeast, seal the fermenter. Set up the airlock correctly with liquid in it. At the very beginning, yeast benefits from oxygen, but once fermentation gets going, avoid splashing the mead around. Too much oxygen later can hurt the flavor. And again, do not use bubbles as your truth meter. Use your hydrometer. Most people think they're safe once the bubbles start, but there's a volume thief waiting for you on racking day. Let me save you another beginner surprise that feels like failure, but is actually normal. You're going to lose some volume later. As fermentation slows down, sediment settles to the bottom. That sediment is mostly yeast and other solids. When you move the clearer mead off that sediment, you will not get every drop. If you want a full gallon at the end, start a little larger. This matters even more for fruit meads. If you're making a fruit mead, leave enough room in your fermenter. Fruit can rise and form a cap, and active fermentation can foam hard. If the container is too full, you'll get a mess fast. For very active batches, a blow-off tube is often safer than a small airlock because it gives foam and gas a bigger path out. You're almost at the finish line, but this is the exact moment where most beginners accidentally create a bottle bomb without realizing it. This is the hard evidence checkpoint. Never bottle because the calendar says it's time. Never bottle just because the bubbles slowed down. Bottle only when you have proof fermentation is finished. For a beginner, that means taking hydrometer readings on different days and seeing the same reading stay stable. If the reading is still changing, fermentation is still happening. If you bottle too early, pressure can build inside the bottle. That could cause leaks, gushers, or broken glass. This is also why beginners should be careful about adding extra honey at the end. If you add sugar before fermentation is truly done, yeast can wake back up and start producing pressure again. If your first mead tastes young or strange, don't panic. Time often fixes that. The real beginner goal is building a repeatable process. Clean tools, good water, fully mixed honey, healthy yeast, proper temperature, and proof before bottling. Once you stop guessing and start measuring, your mead gets better on purpose. Drop a comment with your water source and yeast choice right now so we can troubleshoot your batch. Happy mead making.